Honourable Minister to please withdraw that comment. That was unparliamentary towards another member of Parliament.
A lot of clowns.
Mr. Speaker, I withdraw the comment.
Thank you. The honourable member from Oxford.
After 9 years of the NDP Liberals, taxes are up, costs are up, crime is up, and chaos in our immigration system is also up.
Right on.
The Liberal NDP government has broken our world-class immigration system with their reckless policies. And today's immigration flip-flop is a massive admission of their own failures. The Prime Minister said that he didn't get the balance quite right. That's an understatement. And that is clearly obvious with the state of our country today.
Exactly.
So will the Prime Minister admit that he broke Canada's consensus on immigration and call a carbon tax election now?
The Honourable Minister for Immigration, Refugees and
We'll have to
Citizenship.
put forward a plan instead of slogans. I haven't even heard the slogan on this because he's been so delinquent on coming up with any valid points to be made on the immigration system, the consensus of which is challenged. Let's hear him. Let's hear his plan. Let's even start hearing the slogan because we haven't heard it yet.
The Honourable Member from Oxford.
Mr. Speaker, they're trying to be firefighters when they're the ones that are causing the fires in the first place.
That's right.
We had a consensus on immigration in this country, and this incompetent Prime Minister broke it.
Right.
They ignored warnings from their own officials. They dropped police clearance certificates from their own background checks for temporary residents. They even told their own officials to skip vetting for temporary foreign workers.
Wow.
So there is no doubt that after 9 years, they have broken the consensus on immigration. Will they call a carbon tax election now so common sense Conservatives could clean up their mess?
The Honourable Minister for Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship.
Mr. Speaker, if the member opposite thinks that security certificates from the Modi government are reliable, he needs a little clearance too on top of his leader, who should probably get a better briefing on the national security of this country. Get the clearance, get the briefing, stop being a baby, and be responsible.
Order. Order. The Honourable Member for Bellechasse-les-Échemins-Lévis. Mr. Speaker, there's chaos in immigration. Like in the Liberal caucus, this government broke the immigration system with the help of the Bloc that voted to keep the government in power. Let us remember that this coalition left Roxham Road open 1 year after the United States moved to close it. To govern well is to forecast well. Our government will bring back coherence, planification, and a common-sense Prime Minister. We want elections right now, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Minister for Citizenship, Immigration and Refugees. Mr. Speaker, it's been full incoherence from the Leader of the Opposition, in fact. I would like to hear what the member has to say on her Francophone strategy outside of Quebec, because finally we've reached our target of 6% of Francophone permanent residents outside of Quebec will hit 10%. It'll be the first time in our history. They should be proud of it. They should support us on this matter. The Honourable Member for Bellechasse-les-Échemins-Lévis. I would like to remind everyone, everything has been broken by this government, and the Bloc Québécois voted almost 200 times to keep the government in power. Today, we've seen a desperate attempt from the Prime Minister to repair what he broke himself. Full confusion in the changes made to immigration, full incoherence and full improv from the Liberal government. Only a Conservative government could repair the immigration system and will repair the immigration system. Our message is clear. We want elections, and we want them now. The Honourable Minister for Immigration, Citizenship and Refugees. The Honourable Member decided to read off her page instead of answering my question. I would like to hear what the Conservative parties are planning, because they're not even mature enough. They haven't even thought an iota about the slogan on this matter. I would like to hear their plan. Our plan is reasonable and will control immigration in a reasonable way for Canada and Quebec for the next 3 years. The Honourable Member for Lac-Saint-Jean. The Liberals have finally started to listen to the message from Quebecers put forward by the Bloc Québécois. Instead of raising their immigration targets to 500,000 a year, they are going to lower them to 365,000 by 2027. If Quebec wanted to follow the federal government's new target, it would still have to take in more than 80,000 immigrants per year. That's higher than Quebec's target, and no political party in Quebec is proposing more than 80,000 a year. So how did the federal government figure out that Quebec's capacity to accept immigrants is greater than the evaluation and reckoning of all the parties in Quebec City? The Honourable Minister for Immigration, Citizenship and Refugees. Mr. Speaker, the member across the way knows full well that Quebec's government has approved an agreement with us. They have jurisdiction over their numbers. We're waiting to hear from their plan. We've proposed a plan on a Canadian scale. We're waiting to hear what they have to say, and they will be able to do what they do under the current agreement. We give them $6 billion for francisation and immigration, and we will continue to work with them. The Honourable Member for Lac-Saint-Jean. On that subject, the proposed new thresholds are a step forward, yes, but they still force Quebec to choose between accepting a greater number of immigrants or losing political weight in Canada. That said, Quebec's main concern is still temporary immigration, especially asylum seekers. There is still no plan whatsoever for spreading asylum seekers in amongst the provinces, and Quebec continues to be responsible for almost half of all asylum seekers in Canada. Mr. Speaker, it is the federal government's responsibility to convince reluctant provinces to do their part. So what are they waiting for? The Honourable Minister for Immigration, Citizenship and Refugees. It's wrong that Quebec welcomes 50% of asylum seekers. He just has to consult the statistics that we provide. Statistics Canada states that there have been decreases of asylum seekers at Trudeau Airport in Montreal. It's now at 29%. The Honourable Member for Lac-Saint-Jean. While there is still no fair distribution of migrants between provinces, there is a real risk that migration will skyrocket after the US elections in just 12 days' time. Presidential candidate Trump, should he win, is proposing to deport 11 million people. So if he wins, organisations in Quebec have told us that they expect many people to conclude that they should just pack up and head to Canada. Last time Trump threatened deportations, we ended up with Roxham Road. If the minister is as intelligent as he claims to be, I imagine he already has a plan. Time's ticking. The elections are in 12 days. The Honourable Minister for Immigration, Citizenship and Refugees. I didn't hear a question in that. It was just a statement.
The Honourable Member from Thornhill.
The former immigration minister and the MP from Central Nova oversaw population growth in this country of 200% over the past several years. He lost track of the people that he let in. Worse, he saw international students living in homeless shelters or with 14 roommates in a basement, all while he ignored his department's advice on it was too much and too fast. Watching the impact of these failed policies on housing, the Prime Minister said, "That's my guy for housing." Why did the Prime Minister promote this guy instead of firing him?
The Honourable Minister for Housing, Infrastructure and Communities.
Speaker, the opposition would like to distract from the issues that actually matter most to Canadians. They focus these days on caucus unity. I would actually point out she sits just a few seats down from a colleague who just a few years ago she criticized for casting aspersions on the LGBTQ2+ community. When it comes to the work that we're actually doing to get the homes built, we are doing everything we can to build more affordable housing. When their leader was actually in the position of housing minister, he got only 6 affordable housing units built across the entire country. We're going to focus on what matters to Canadians, not the distractions that they try to put on the floor of the House of Commons.
The Honourable Member from Thornhill.
195,000 was the number, and that's a number that minister would only dream of building because some people fail upwards. Even Canada's current immigration minister said, quote, "It's really a system that has gotten out of control." He was talking about the same immigration system controlled by the new housing guy who lost track of the people who he let in and is now laughably in charge of fueling the housing crisis that the Prime Minister created. The Prime Minister can't possibly fix housing or immigration or anything else because he's fighting his own caucus. So if the Prime Minister won't fire this guy, will he resign in disgrace?
The Honourable Minister of Housing, Infrastructure and Communities.
Mr. Speaker, my feelings. Look, they're going to be disappointed to know that I spend no time or energy thinking about the insults they hurl at me. What concerns me is the insults that they hurl at Canadians. But I do have news for the honourable member, because she stated a fact that needs to be dispelled. 6 is the number of affordable housing units that the government helped build. They're trying to take credit for the number of homes that Canadians built. But Mr. Speaker, here's the kicker, and I've got news. That number, if we accept it as the right metric, is the worst record of any housing minister in the last 10 years. If they want a prize for their leader's efforts, it's the prize for biggest loser.
The honourable member from Central Okanagan, Similkameen Nicola.
Mr. Speaker, after 9 years of these NDP Liberals, taxes are up, costs are up, crime is up, time is up. The former Minister of Immigration and MP for Central Nova was responsible for population growth of 200% in the past several years. Worse, he saw international students living in homeless shelters and in cramped quarters while ignoring departmental warnings that immigration levels were rising too fast. Now, watching the impact of these failed policies on housing, the Prime Minister sat back and proudly said, "That's my guy, that's my housing minister." Why did the Prime Minister promote this minister? Instead of simply firing him, are the two of them waiting to get a pink slip from the Liberal caucus?
The Honourable Minister for Housing, Infrastructure and Communities.
Mr. Speaker, they want to talk about immigration as failure. I'm surprised that they would call it a failure that we provided refuge to hundreds of thousands of vulnerable Ukrainians who fled a war of aggression. I'm surprised that they think it's a failure to have made good on our commitment to welcome 40,000 Afghan refugees, including those who actually fought alongside the Canadian forces. Now, I shouldn't be surprised, Mr. Speaker, because they have opposed our support for Ukraine at every step of the way. They campaign on a commitment to welcome precisely 0 Afghan refugees. Immigration in this country, Mr. Speaker, is not a failure, it is a strength.
I'm going to encourage all members, please, not to speak out of turn when they are not recognized by the chair. The honourable member from Port Moody, Coquitlam.